Word Funk, we are here once again because you demanded it. You said, we want more. We want a 14th or 15th episode of this. Nah, you didn't. Which we have a pretty decent-sized following, though. It's slowly growing in conservative increments.
You realize that you're downplaying us to our own audience, right?
I mean, you guys are great, and oh my god, how many even are you? It's like looking at you is like looking at the vastness of the universe. How many stars are there in the universe? I don't know.
At least
six. But not as many as there are fans of Word Funk. No, in all seriousness, the show is actually doing reasonably well. It's not meant to be a money-making endeavor. I mentioned that before, and someone said, you should try to make more money off this. No, this is a completely improvised conversation between among three friends that I had to correct my grammar there. Among three friends that we.
I thought you were going to correct yourself to two friends in Austin.
No, I meant that between is two and among is three or more. But it's a conversation that we pretend is a podcast, basically. Anyway, Johnny has some interesting news about something that happened in the nerdish internet-y world. It is related to conventions, which is interesting for me as I am a few days away from going to a convention myself. But certainly not this one, and Johnny is going to tell us why.
Well, it's a little bit of a weird lead-in because conventions are a really important part of kind of like nerd culture. There's this idea that as nerds we kind of like exist in these small pockets that scattered across the landscape, long distance between those of us that share enthusiasm and about desires to discuss these things we obsess over. And so cons are a really great way for us to pack up our bags and leave wherever it is you hail from. Like I know plenty of people in sprawling metropolises, such as the Greater Vancouver Regional District that are like bananas about going to PAX because PAX is just down across the border. But I mean, like Vancouver's got some of the weirdest, like nerdiest bars in the world. We've got a bar called the Storm Crow. We've got a bar called EXP where it's like you can sit down at the table and they have like video game screens playing, and the Storm Crow has like board games and all this memorabilia up on the wall. But cons are like this place where you kind of like you knuckle down, you get your bags, you kiss your mom, you hug your dad, or the other way around, if that's what you're into. And you head out to a con, and you meet some people, you sing loud songs in the elevator, you do a stupid dance, you eat some food, you do exchange shirts with a guy, and take a lot of selfies.
Those the only things that you do there.
Yeah, you never do these things anywhere else.
No.
Ever. But these past 2 weeks have kind of been bad news for some cons. Now, granted, not bad news in the sense that staples of conventions, like Con Bravo, for instance, or the San Diego Comic-Con, or PAX, the aforementioned. But last week saw the very first annual flop of a unofficial Minecraft convention in North America, in New York City specifically, called Mine-O-Rama! Which I hope that when the actual organizers say has an echo on it. The story behind Mine-O-Rama is, in contrast to the second part of the story, a little suspect. Where people were paying $150 for 2-day tickets to this Minecraft convention that was supposed to bring, like, Minecraft YouTubers, famous modders of the game all together, to, like, get together and enthuse about Minecraft. People like to enthuse about Minecraft. It's a big thing, regardless of Leon's inability to understand that.
What? What? What happened?
No, didn't say nothing. Don't know what you're talking about. But here's the thing. is that Minorama, which was supposed to take place on the 12th and 13th, just this past weekend, basically less than a week before it was supposed to go up, just basically said, well, guess what, it's not on. Now, the organizers of Minorama have said that it's postponed, but they haven't actually said till when. They were a little reticent to admit at first that why it was postponed, because financing fell through, which a lot of people are saying is a little suspect because, you know, they were shown as having, like, the hotel space booked, and they had sold all these tickets already, but, you know, so now they're saying that, oh, when Minorama goes up, dude, it's going to be awesome, you can all come. Of course, people are understandably a little bit uncertain as to whether or not that's actually going to happen, and they're worried that they're not getting any recourse to obtain refunds from this. Now, this would be a kind of a, you know, like once in a, oh, well, you know, couple of guys who probably didn't really do the proper research about what it would be like to start a convention, maybe overshot their ability in their imagination department. But weirdly enough, like, the same weekend that was supposed to house Minorama, we had yet another really interesting convention disaster.
I just want to butt in just 1 second. In spite of my long-lasting and storied history of absolutely hating Minecraft, I do feel really bad for everyone who was basically planning to go to a convention and then suddenly it disappeared off the face of the earth. That has got to suck.
You know, these people obviously, you know, many of these people will have booked hotel rooms that they can't refund. And I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, though, there are worse things that you can do with a weekend, way worse things that you can do with a weekend than go to New York and just hang out and be groovy. It's a beautiful town, you know, maybe a little warm this time of year, kind of humid as I remember it, but still, you know, if you're excited about going to New York because you want to enthuse with people about Minecraft, and then somebody says, nope, you're not going to do it, then that's sort of a bitter pill to swallow, especially if the $150 that you paid in order to enthuse about Minecraft with other fans was ripped from your hands and ne'er again promised to return to them. But the one that I really want to talk about, you know, like I mentioned Minorama just as a kind of a curio because it happened at like almost the exact same time as this, was DashCon. Now, DashCon, for those of you who don't know, like Minorama, was a first convention, first annual DashCon 2014. It was supposed to be, well, I mean, it is, but originally it was called TumbleCon. It was supposed to be a convention for Tumblr culture giants, you know, people who like tumbling, people who are really into tumbling, people who are great at tumbling, and people who are maybe not so good at tumbling, but that kind of makes them funny.
I tumble reasonably well.
I believe you do. I've seen you tumble before.
Yeah. Actually, the success of Renegade Cut is at least partly due to social media, and Tumblr has certainly been part of that.
Now, where Minecraft, they called it DashCon eventually because they wanted to remove any official connection that they might have to Tumblr.
Right.
Because Tumblr is not affiliated with what wound up being DashCon. The main difference between DashCon and Minorama is that DashCon went on. So DashCon had paid their fees. They had dates July 11 to 13 in Schaumburg Renaissance Convention Center somewhere in Illinois. And weekend pass was $65, and you could get, like, individual day passes for, like, $30 to $50, right? So DashCon was a thing that happened purely by definition. Because, you know, there was an event called DashCon.
Oh.
It's maybe I'm being mean. Okay, maybe I'm being,
No, you're not.
maybe I'm being mean because I'm, when it comes to these situations where it's sort of like where one thing's advertised and then another thing pops out the other end, you can blame it on ineptitude. I can't remember what the particular author of the coined maxim is never attribute to malice what can easily be explained by incompetence. So it might just be that we had a bunch of guys who were acting way out of their league here.
But this was like almost unparalleled ineptitude. This reached comedic levels. I mean, obviously not for anyone who was there and had to pay, but for anyone watching from the outside, it was like, driving past a car wreck. I've followed little bits and pieces of news about this, and it's just shocking and unfortunately a little amusing as well. Obviously, car wrecks are not amusing, but the tales of the ball pits and things like that we'll get to certainly were.
Well, this is the thing, is that it basically comes down to us either calling the people who organized DashCon irreprehensible assholes,
mm-hmm.
or unmitigated disaster hounds.
Can't it be both though?
It might very well be, this might be the Good Intentions Paving Company, as run by Satan.
Okay, well, let's get into some particulars here. One that I know about is that the staff behind Welcome to Night Vale, a podcast that I listen to, was brought in. Obviously, they made it really big, in part because of Tumblr and because of social media, sort of word of mouth. And they were brought in to be guest speakers, and that sounds like a big draw to me. I mean, I love the show. And basically, they were told that they could not be paid. And almost immediately before the panel itself, they said, "You have completely gone back on everything," and they just took off. The funny thing is that if you watch the video where one of the organizers explains what happens, they try to make it out like Welcome to Night Vale people were just unhappy with the conditions and left the fans in sort of a selfish act. Where in reality is, if you are told you be paid to do something and you're not paid to do it, you can't be expected to actually do it. The organizer got up there and she was like, we tried to accommodate them, but apparently they wanted everything up front. Well, you know what? They wanted everything up front because your convention was a disaster, and you...
And this is the thing as well, is that the Welcome to the Night Vale presentation was a ticketed event. So people who had already paid their money to get into the convention paid money again to go see Night Vale.
Yeah. Yeah, they paid double. You went to the convention, you had to kind of double down just to see the people from the show, and I feel really bad for the people who went there. Like I said, I'm a fan myself, and it's just insane. But don't worry, everyone listening. If you are shocked in horror as much as I am, don't worry, because the people who paid extra just to see this particular panel that did not happen got a very special prize, for they were given an hour in a ball pit.
An extra hour.
Oh, an extra hour. I mean, if you wanted 1 hour, then cool. But apparently, if you already had the one, you could get another one. And so you got to, and when they say the ball pit, it's not like this massive, almost McDonald's Playland apparatus. It's basically a little pool with balls in it.
We're talking a dinghy, like something that you would see in a movie where there's a shipwreck and three guys manage to escape the boat and have no water and no food, and there's always the worry that the guy with the hook hand is gonna puncture it, which incidentally happened. The ball pit deflated.
I've actually heard two other interesting stories about the ball pit. The ball pit itself is almost like its own entity now. One of the things I heard about the ball pit was someone who didn't want DashCon to be slandered for this said, and I quote, "Hey, I met a lot of cool people in the ball pit," as if that makes it better. Yes, I'm sure there are a lot of cool people who were in the ball pit, but that's not what you paid for. And here's the other thing. Apparently, I'm sorry, this is gross, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Someone peed in the ball pit, and they had to I had to do something about that. Now, because someone peed in the ball pit, I'm wondering if this was intentional. Like, this was someone who said, "I have had enough, and this is the only way I can express my displeasure at this moment." So, the ball pit, at least at one point, had something in it that it shouldn't have been, and it's just, I don't know. Everything about the ball pit just sounds funny to me. And gross.
I like to think the entire enterprise was some attempt to defraud and ridicule Tumblr users. The entire thing. Just take money from them, embarrass them, just make it all a huge joke, because that's how lots of people see Tumblr.
This was one of the things that raised my. I mean, right now we're just talking about, something that looks idiotic. Like this is, describing it as having a kiddie pool filled with like balls and not paying the people that you want because maybe your funding didn't go through. That sounds deliberately, not deliberately, but it sounds very specifically like incompetence. But the thing that raised the red flag for me was that on the 11th. On the Friday, like basically the first day of the convention, right, where everybody that was going to come was pretty much already there, staff members told everybody there that they were going to be thrown out of the hotel unless they got $17,000 before 10 o'clock on the night of the 11th.
What? That's not how hotels work.
That's not how life works.
No, and that is the red flag right there. Is that it's like you couldn't possibly book a convention space with the promise that on the night of your first day there you'll have the money. Like this isn't like Greasy Tony and his buddy Lips Salvatore being like, I don't know, you gonna, which may be offensive to Italian Americans. I apologize for this. But I'm
going to do it anyway.
I don't do a Yakuza accent very well.
That might be worse.
So that would be, probably way worse. Okay, let's go nerdy white guy mafia, because this is Tumblr we're talking about. So this could be like HTML McGee and Pocket Protector Jones, all right, would be like, we'd really like to be able to host your convention, but we're going to need a little more money. And being like, oh, I promise you, we're going to have it at the end of the first day, I promise you. Like, that does not happen.
Could be something were to happen to your high-speed DSL.
Yeah.
That's why I say it was all a long con, because when you get everyone there, no pun intended with that, but they get everyone there and then you shake them down for more money, right? Doesn't that make more sense than
I think so.
I mean, I lived in a hotel for a year. That's a long story in and of itself.
I would hear that story, but we'll save that for later.
But they don't just let people, they don't say, oh, you can have this room, and then give us the money later if you feel like it, you have to have, a credit card, and you have to have, stuff, in advance. You book these things, right?
Yeah, I mean, I recently had to book a hotel. I'm going to a convention that's real in a few days called Con Bravo, and they had to take my credit card, and it's already paid for. So, I assume that has to be done way in advance and in much larger sums for a convention. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. Here's the funny thing to me. This has gained such a mocking following, this whole DashCon phenomenon, if you can call it that I wonder if they try to do it next year, that people will go ironically.
Yeah, it's like the potato salad Kickstarter.
Yeah, pre-order your DashCon 2015 tickets now. DashCon 2 Retribution.
It'll probably be somebody else using the name who will actually execute it competently in like a Troll 2 way.
Oh. It's a shame.
It is. It is really. I mean, it's it kind of makes, the social group that I identify with, A, sort of look gullible.
Yeah.
And easily exploited, and B, it also kind of like, because what is it really, other than trying to basically crowdfund a convention, which in turn then makes crowdfunding look kind of shady. And I love my crowdfunding. I just got access to Elite Dangerous, at least the single player portions of it. So I'm like Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen. I'm like, yeah, love it.
I mean, everyone should know by now the first rule of crowdfunding is don't give your money to people you don't trust. Do these people have a track record? Are they known entities? This was an unofficial thing that no one had any reason to trust.
Yeah.
It's a pretty basic failure of research, in my opinion. I don't really feel bad for the people who were swindled, and maybe that's just my bias because I find, like, the Tumblr culture largely laughable.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Is there a Tumblr culture? It sounds more like it's just a social media thing.
Well, there has to be a Tumblr culture, or else they wouldn't actually have a convention center.
There are.
Or is that just picking like the easy target? Because having a Twitter convention would just be fucking stupid.
Well, Tumblr certainly has almost a personality behind it, where you can kind of make sort of like broad generalizations. Like Tumblr is all about Loki. It's like 70% Loki and 30% Benedict Cumberbatch. But in reality, it's a sort of massive social media tool, just like Twitter or Facebook, that could be about all manner of things.
Yeah.
There's definitely a personality behind Tumblr, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, Tumblr is a platform. I think everyone knows when I say, like, when you say 4chan, you're actually talking about B. You're not talking about 4chan as a greater whole, right?
Okay,
so when you say,
first of all, I don't go to 4chan, so I don't know what you mean, but okay.
It's better that you don't.
Okay.
If you understand what I'm saying, then this makes more sense. Tumblr is a larger entity with lots of varied things on it, but when you talk about Tumblr culture, you're talking about like Sherlock fans, Doctor Who fans, like that. All those shows are terrible. Supernatural's terrible. Doctor Who is terrible. Sherlock is terrible. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Those shows are all terrible. Maybe that's why I don't care.
Well, I will say one thing. Tumblr was a big, maybe responsible is the wrong word, but Tumblr really helped get the word out about Hannibal.
That's true.
Those are probably not terrible people, or less terrible. I'm not saying there's nothing good on the site. I'm saying when you say Tumblr culture, those are the people you're talking about.
Sure.
Yeah, the people who are likely to show up at a Tumblr convention.
Okay. And I will say that Welcome to Night Vale is actually a really good show, and everyone should check it out.
And their Twitter is hilarious.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I've heard. I haven't actually listened to that yet, but I hear it's good.
Awesome. Anything more we want to say about this before we talk about Marvel Comics?
I probably pissed enough people off. Let's move on. Let's
Doctor Who is terrible, everyone. That show that's been on for about half a century.
I'm clearly not talking about classic Who. I'm talking about the Moffat shit. I'm talking about Matt Smith. He is terrible.
I've tried on many occasions to get into Doctor Who. I've seen quite a bit of Matt Smith's era and David Tennant and the other one. But
I've got a David Tennant boner. I'm not.
Tennant's
not
awesome.
even gonna lie about it.
He was good in the Fright Night remake. I would say that. So
he's also his Hamlet's phenomenal.
Okay. And I've really tried to get into Doctor Who. My wife's really into it, so I watch it because it's on in my home. I find that I dislike 70%, like 70-75% of the episodes. Occasionally, something will come up, and I'll say, "Oh, that was actually pretty well written science fiction," so I enjoyed that. But by and large, it's something that I wish I liked because it's a huge science fiction franchise that's on TV and has a huge history. So it sounds like something that would be up my alley, but I can't entirely get behind it. It's something I mostly am indifferent towards. Hopefully, with the new Doctor played by Peter Capaldi, I will start to like it, but we'll see. It apparently comes back in August, so check it.
I agree with basically everything you just said. Like, it's 30% of the episodes are okay, but that's still a shitty show in general, right? You can't.
You got to admit that it's a fantastic formula. Like, it's a great idea where it's like, let's see, how can we have a television show where we can fuck off to, like, any era in history and mess around with any, like, you know, like, fucking werewolves or aliens or exploding suns or, like, Caesar or Queen Victoria or fucking Mahatma Gandhi and, like, just throw whatever the fuck we want in there. It's like a writer's wet dream about themselves.
You know, and that's why half the episodes take place in modern London.
Yeah.
Exactly, Johnny. It has a killer premise that it totally underutilizes.
Another thing that bothers me about Doctor Who, I had no intention of talking about Doctor Who during this episode. No, it's okay. The thing that bothers me about Doctor Who is the same thing that bothers me about whenever I watch just about anything on the BBC, including Orphan Black, which is actually better, but I still can't get behind it. It is shot in a way that looks like a television show. And I know that sounds redundant, but what I mean by that is shows in the past few years or even just past 10 years or so have been shot in a way and look like they could be movies. Like they're shot in such a way that there is a...
Some shows. When was the last time you sat down and watched NCIS?
Not all. And I don't want to watch those shows. But because that show looks like a television show. And that's the way Doctor Who looks to me. And when I watch it, I just think, I feel like I'm watching a show from the 90s. And not just because of the special effects. It just looks like I'm watching a show from the 90s. I would even say that some science fiction from the 90s is shot better. I think I like the look of Next Generation a little bit better. But still, I mean, there's kind of this disconnect for me now that I've been fed filet mignon, and now they're just trying to say, here's spam. This is what our shows look like in England, so you just have to deal with it. And I for some reason, visuals have become more and more important to me as time goes on, cinematography, and for some reason, I just watch it and I'm like, it's harder and harder to take this seriously when it just looks like trash.
On that note, I'm just going to stand up for spam. Because I actually, believe it or not, I do enjoy a spam sandwich. Grilled spam, a little bit of mustard, some onions. It's something I inherited from my father, so there's like a little bit of nostalgia there, but...
You know, I'll just say this. I don't eat spam, and I don't think I've ever have. I just used it as the go-to make fun of a meat joke there. I've never eaten spam in my life, so if it's good, then fine. I'm just making... It's
a little salty.
Okay. That's alright.
But if you prepare it right, you know, if you prepare anything right, like if you make a Doctor Who episode that looks good and, you know, it's got the right cast members, has the good writing, then you can enjoy a good spam sandwich. But that doesn't mean that, like, I want to eat spam every day. So.
Yeah.
Unless it's David Tennant playing the spam. That makes it a lot more palatable.
Yeah, but that's just like me being a little bit denial about being sexually attracted to spam. There's a little, you know.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Oh.
Yeah.
All right, we really should move on to this stuff. We really should.
Okay, the name of this episode is Boner Woner.
Well, I'll have to think.
How about Wibbly Flibbly Timey Wimey Boner Woner?
There are standards now that I'm not sure if I can get past that, but I'll think about it. I do want to talk about something else, and that is that Marvel Comics, a company I used to follow. I used to read the comic books. I don't anymore. But every once in a while, Marvel Comics there will be a news story about Marvel that will make me want to read comics again. And there will be a news story about DC Comics that will make me not want to. And this is one that actually interests me. Thor, in the comics, is sort of being recast. Every once in a while in comics, the person that you normally consider to be the person who holds that mantle, like Batman, is usually Bruce Wayne, but sometimes has been Dick Grayson or Jean-Paul Valley or Captain.
Is that Azrael?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes Captain America is Steve Rogers. You normally associate him with that, but a few years back he was actually Bucky. Bucky took on the mantle for a little bit, and this happens from time to time, and it turns out that Thor is being recast, at least for a while, and the person behind it, we don't know the name of the new Thor. Well, let me rephrase that. The name of the new Thor will be Thor, but we don't know the exact identity. What we're trying to figure out right now is who it's going to be. The only thing we do know is that it's going to be a woman. It's going to be a woman for the first time. There has been someone who has held the Hammer of Thor before. Storm once picked it up. It's very difficult to pick up the Hammer of Thor. Mjolnir, I may be mispronouncing that, and I apologize. She's able to pick it up because you have to be worthy to pick it up. And there has been, I read this, I tried to remind myself, Beta Ray Bill once held the Hammer of Thor and was Thor for a bit. But normally it's Thor is Thor. He's the blonde guy that we have known throughout the ages. He used to say Gadzooks until someone reminded whoever wrote that actually means like Christ's wounds, and that's not his mythology. So but no,
I think you're thinking of Zounds, but
is it?
Yeah.
They're mutations. It was originally Zwoons.
Oh, okay.
Right, as in God's wounds, and then it was Zounds, and then it was Gadzooks.
Oh, so it's the same.
I didn't know about that last link. That's good.
All right. Well, I learned that too now.
Well, it was poor. It was not like Middle English. I don't remember what it was, but like Gadzooks, Gadzoons.
We're all smarter people now.
Thank you. But anyway, there's going to be a new Thor, and the new Thor is a woman. Most people will just kind of shrug and say, cool, okay, new Thor. Now I have a new interest in maybe picking up the new Thor. A new number one usually gets people's attention as same as adding a new character or replacing a character for a while. Some people are being dicks, but that is to be expected. And I'm going to read a tweet from someone who said, seriously, Lady Thor, what the fuck, Marvel? And so things like that have been popping up. First of all,
that's so predictable. It's boring. Like I'm not even interested in your sexist shit anymore, Internet. You bore me with your tiny dick bullshit.
and the funny thing is, and by the way, the new Thor will not be called Lady Thor or She Thor. The new Thor is just Thor, as all other people who have had to hold it for a while have been called. You don't have to like add part of a new
Yeah, there's no qualification.
No.
It's like Thor, but with lady parts.
My oh my god. My guess is that it will be Broomhilda. She is a character. I believe she was in Secret Avengers at the time that I stopped reading. She was cool. But anyway, that's just my guess. It could be like literally anyone.
I think it's going to be Scarlett Johansson. She's in everything these days. And I'm not even talking about in the movies. Like, I think in the comic books, it's like, Scarlett Johansson is going to be like, I need to hammer this nail in. What's this?
I actually have had this idea in my head, years ago, that wouldn't it be cool if they, like, spoke to, like, a big Hollywood actor and ask permission to use their likeness. You could probably do it without their permission, but there might be like legalities involved. But you asked for permission to use their likeness, and you introduced a new superhero, but you didn't know their secret identity. But after like 2 years, that he gets unmasked, and it's just Tom Cruise. It's like, Tom Cruise? What are you doing here? We didn't expect this at all. Oh, you're on stilts. That's why you're listening. And, but no, I mean, I think that would be cool. Occasionally they do use real people. Barack Obama appeared in an issue of Spider-Man.
Neil deGrasse Tyson met Superman at one point in time.
These things happen.
Nick Fury just is Samuel L. Jackson.
I know that a character in The Boys, which is I believe was written by Garth Ennis, was modeled in appearance after Sean Pegg. And there's sort of this controversy about whether or not he gave permission, but there's never been any like lawsuit or anything about it. It's a face.
If Sean Pegg, saw himself in a comic book, I think he'd probably be more like, than, hey, wait a minute.
This isn't cool. But no, I mean, he wasn't called Sean Pegg. He just really looks like Sean Pegg. But anyway, what did I say? Simon Pegg. I'm sorry, Simon Pegg. I'm thinking Shaun of the Dead. I'm an idiot.
And I just totally went right with you, too.
Yeah, you just accepted my truth.
I thought there was just an actor named Sean Pegg that I wasn't aware of. I just was like, oh, I don't get this reference. I'll set this one out. We
may have to call this episode Sean Pegg now. Gosh, there's so many options. But anyway, but yeah, this is happening soon. I'm considering reading comic books again. I just don't think I have the time for it. Maybe I'll just pick up one or two, and maybe this one. I don't know. But anyway, the person who's writing it, this new one, he's been writing Thor, God of Thunder for about 25 issues now. You know, not a newbie. So, could be good. Could be good. Every once in a while, like I said, there's just a new person who takes on the mantle of someone. Miles Morales became Spider-Man in the Ultimate Spider-Man line. Right now, actually, funny thing about Spider-Man, Dr. Octopus became Spider-Man recently, but now it's back to Peter Parker. So yeah,
these things are always temporary.
Of course, they are, and I suspect this will be as well, unless it gets really popular, in which case they'll just run with it. But I guess some people like threw up their hands because the gender is different. I mean, I guess it would be strange if a woman were named Superman, because that would just be inaccurate. But Thor is just Thor. I mean, you still could have. There are female, Kryptonians, so it's not like a big deal. I just mean that Thor doesn't have like a male thing attached to it, so I really don't even see why it should be an issue for someone else to be called Thor.
I mean, in the Norse mythology, you could make an argument for it being a certain character, but
because Marvel Comics has been so faithful to Norse mythology.
Well, that's where I'm going. Yeah, within the comic itself provides a perfect mechanism for this. Whoever picks up the hammer is the Thor, like the original Thor and like Thor #1. That was just some guy, right? He was just like a scientist or some shit, and he just found.
I think he was a doctor.
And he just picked it up, right?
I can't remember, to be honest.
So anybody can pick it up and just be the Thor, which is cool, which is like anyone can get bit by a radioactive spider and be Spider-Man. I mean, Marvel's doing a lot of this shit. You said Miles Morales. I knew that one. They also introduced a Muslim Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
Like they're doing a bunch of cool shit, and DC's just like, look, Catwoman's naked again.
She sure is.
Look, Harley Quinn's killing herself naked in a bath.
I'll tell you this. One of the main reasons, there were basically two reasons why I stopped reading comic books. I was more of a DC person than Marvel, just because I like me some Batman. But the two things that made me stop reading comic books were this. One is just I didn't have the time. I'm under deadlines, and I just don't have time for too many of my hobbies anymore. But the reason why I could just sort of walk away and not make it a big deal was that when DC rebooted their universe and just ruined so much that I loved and so much that everyone else loved, that was about like a good time to walk away. If I start reading again, it'll almost certainly be Marvel. And
you're talking about the New 52, right?
Yes. the reinvention of their universe, I don't know even the correct word for it, but the ruination of many of their female characters, the just idiotic choices. They tried a bunch of things that I was kind of interested in certain things that they were going to do. I mean, they tried to leave most of the Batman books alone, except for making Barbara Gordon a Batgirl again. But in general, they just, I don't know. I mean, financially, it worked out for them in the short term. I don't know what their finances are now, and I haven't followed it too closely. But yeah, everything I ever hear about DC is bad. And everything I hear about Marvel, whenever they're on a Time article or something like big, it's always good. It's always positive. It's always something cool like this.
Yeah. I gotta bring one thing to the forefront that possibly concerns me about this, and before anybody's like, "Ooh, wait a minute, Johnny's bringing out his misogynist here," the possibility for them to just gender swap is a big danger.
You mean just like to She-Hulk it?
To not even She-Hulk it, but like to basically not actually change anything kind of like psychologically about the character, just slapping a pair of boobs on her.
Well, here's why I don't think that's going to happen. That's a legitimate fear, and I understand what you're saying. But why it's not going to happen is they're not gender swapping Thor in the sense that the guy we know as Thor is now suddenly female. It's just it's going to be a pre-existing character is now going to hold the hammer. And,
yes.
And I think if it's the person I think it's going to be, then awesome, because that's just cool.
It is a worry that because the whole concept of a strong woman is often confused in pop culture. A lot of people think that in order for a woman to be strong, she has to be more like a man.
I wrote an entire article about this on Blister Thumbs once, about the fallacy of the strong female character. How you just make them physically strong has nothing to do with writing them in an interesting way.
Yeah, and that is a potential concern for me. That's the only thing that really worries me about this, is that it's just going to give an easy path to having a character that they could just easily write as a male, or that they even do write as a male. It's just that they artistically depict a woman.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fear that I understand, but I don't read comic books enough to know if like this author is to be trusted with this or whatever. I mean, that's beyond my scope, so I don't know how much we have to add to it.
I know a few comic book writers off the top of my head, and back when I read them, I could tell you bits and pieces about a lot, but I don't remember this person's name, so I can't speak to that too well. But I mean, what you're saying, Johnny, I get as the fear. But I'm still actually interested in maybe even reading this one.
It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing on this planet will get me to read comic books because that's just not a medium I'm interested in. Sequential art just doesn't do anything for me.
Okay.
But if I had to choose, like if someone's like gun to my head, what are you going to read? It's like I'd much rather go with Miles Morales' Spider-Man or Muslim Miss Marvel or female Thor than, what they've done to Catwoman or Harley or Starfire over at DC.
What they've done to Harley Quinn is just criminal. I mean, Harley Quinn, the great thing about her is that although she was and I'm using finger quotes, villain, she was always more mischievous, and her origin story suggests that there is a chance for her to go back to the way she once was, and that's always.
She was sympathetic.
Is there anything else we want to say about comic books before I move on to how much I hate Rent, and then we'll just call it a day?
I just wanted to say really quick about series that have a pre-existing mechanism for changing like the legacy character. Like whoever picks up Thor's hammer is Thor, right? Whoever like the Doctor turns into is the new Doctor. Like James Bond is a title. Why is it that there's such a, like, I think, Leon, didn't you do an episode of Renegade Cut on this about, like, why are people so resistant to change?
Yeah, it was about the difference between how we view Indiana Jones and how we view James Bond, wherein if you change the actor behind James Bond, you accept it, but it feels somehow wrong to do it with Indiana Jones. My contention is that James Bond seems like this superhuman and anyone can play him, whereas Harrison Ford made you think Indiana Jones was mortal, I guess. I mean, Indiana Jones is like always falling on his ass. He's smart and kind of effective, but he screws up all the time, so you feel like he's a human being. So it would feel weird to recast him, although they probably will one day.
Okay. So you think that since Thor is a superhero, he's less fallible, less, like, normal, that it should be more accepted when he changes? I
would. I mean, superheroes, are even more powerful than James Bond. I think people can just accept that there's a new character-ish who has the Thor title. I mean, I think that these things are sort of accepted. I'll be honest, I think some of the major resistance to this is it's a woman this time, so that's somehow weird for some people.
If you're threatened by the existence of a female fictional character, either you're a time traveler from medieval times, or you have, like, the most serious psychological issues, and you should really talk to a therapist.
What if I'm attracted to Thor now? Oh no, my sexuality is in conflict with it, so I don't know what to do.
That's actually, I don't know, you guys have no idea what this is, but I'm going to say it anyway. I started reading JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and every, like, part is a new person named JoJo, and some of them are related, and it's complicated, but it's a white guy, or I guess a Japanese guy, for, like, the first 5 parts, and then it's a woman in the 6th, and that's my favorite part, because she's so different and cool. I fucking love that, and I wish Doctor Who would do that, because it's asinine how the same alien could regenerate into the same British white guy 12, 13 times when it's stated he could have, like, multiple heads, he could be different colors, he could be different sizes, he could be anything. Always British guy, always British white guy.
I'd like to see Idris Elba as Doctor Who.
Yeah, I think that was some people said, yeah, wouldn't it be cool if Idris Elba was the new Doctor or even the new James Bond?
Yeah, fucking awesome. I would love to see that. And I don't think it's like,
without a doubt he should be fucking Green Lantern.
Yeah, I actually suggested that in Renegade Cut episode. That would be cool.
Yeah.
But he's just cool in general.
He's so cool.
Oh, man.
I just rewatched Rock and Roller the other night. So cool.
When Idris Elba, he's in really good shape. So when that scene in Pacific Rim happened where he had to put on his suit one more time, he's like, oh, it's a lot snugger than I used to. I'm like, yeah, you big tub. Yeah, sure, okay. It's kind of like when I was watching, I wanted to rewatch Fight Club recently to do an episode on it, and Brad Pitt's character says, self-improvement is masturbation, and he's looking at a picture of, like, a male model. I'm like, yeah, it's easy for you to say Brad Pitt. Jesus Christ, you're like so shredded in your abs in this movie.
My favorite thing about Fight Club is that most people who watch it don't realize you're not supposed to agree with Tyler.
Yeah, I had over.
He's the villain.
Yes, you're supposed to accept some of the things that he and the narrator are saying early on, but as it goes further, you're like, no, a lot of this is bullshit, and taking it to extremes is almost never a good idea with your philosophy.
A lot of good ideas that diverge in practice.
Yeah. I still need to watch your episode, Leon. I've been meaning to. That's the next thing.
Well, I know a fucking guy that started a Fight Club after watching Fight Club. I was like, dude, did we watch the same movie, or are you just stupid?
He left.
Turns out he was just stupid.
He left before the third act.
But speaking of movies, Leon.
Oh, yeah. I watched Rent last night.
You poor bastard.
Did you pay for it?
No. It was on Netflix, so, kind of, but, not by it's not by movie. But anyway, my wife and I made a deal where there's like a bunch of movies that she wishes that I would watch that I haven't gotten around to watching, and there's a bunch of movies that I wish she would watch that are some of my favorites that I wish she would get around to watching. So we made like lists of movies, and right after recording this, we're gonna watch Raiders of the Lost Ark. And the Indiana Jones movies are dear to me, but she's never seen them. And last night I decided to just be generous and start with her list, and we watched Rent. She loves this movie, and I will say a couple good things before I launch into my hatred. Everyone, like, in terms of, like, musical talent, really good. I mean, I can't deny that. They're all very, very talented singers, actors, in some cases dancers. No doubt about it. That being said, I hate this movie so much. Philosophically. I didn't expect to. I thought it was just going to be a silly comedy, drama, musical thing where I would say, oh, you know, okay, not entirely for me, but whatever. But no, there's a few stories in Rent, but the one that sort of flows throughout it is that these people are like artists. They're poets and musicians and documentary filmmakers, and they've been given this amazing gift. Like in the year prior to the first scene of Rent, they've been living rent free in this building, and that's amazing. Their friend set this up for them, and they thought they were going to be able to do this for quite a bit longer, and then they realize that their free ride is over and that they may have to move because their building is being changed ownership and blah, blah, blah. Some, you know, I'm not getting into the technical jargon, but basically they realize that their free ride is over and they're pissed. They, like, burn their eviction notices and throw it out the window, and, like, they're basically, we're artists, we shouldn't have to pay rent. First of all, oh my God, to have a year of free rent, that is, like, impossible.
In New York, too, right?
Yeah, in New York. I mean, I've lived a bunch of places. Apparently the rent is even worse in New York than any of the other places I've ever lived. To live rent-free in New York City for a year.
Especially if you want to go to Minorama.
Yeah. It's amazing. And now they're pissed because they can't do that anymore. And in my head, I'm like, I mean, no matter what era you're living in, getting a good job is tough. But getting a shitty job is easy. It's easy to get a shitty job. I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, you have a roommate. Both of you get shitty jobs, get an apartment, you'll be fine. Everything's cool. But they're like, no, this is unacceptable, and I don't want this. And then later in the movie, this guy, he's a documentary filmmaker. He's making like sort of provocative stuff, and this television show wants to pay him thousands of dollars and this goes up on an upward scale to work for him. And he's like, no way, man. No way. I'm not going to work for Buzzline. No. I was like, dude, what are you're just given all of these amazing gifts and you're just throwing it all away. Are you that much of a douchebag? And the answer is yes, he is. He has to be sort of like coaxed into it by like all of his friends. And after he takes a job, a legitimate job where he's paid lots and lots of money to basically do what he loves, he's like, I sold my soul. Actual line from the movie. I feel like I sold my soul. I hate all of these characters, except Collins. He's just cool, and he has a job, and he's just really nice and friendly, and there's nothing bad to be said about this person. But
Rent is like what like crazy racist conservatives think liberals are like.
Yeah, and I felt that I'm certainly a left-leaning person, so I felt a little weird basically taking the conservative position on this. But yeah, get a fucking job. I'm sorry, but guys, just like you have to live like the rest of us. You are not super special. You have to get jobs and work a little bit and pay your rent, and that's just life. Either that or buy to own. But one of those things you have to actually do. And they're just insufferable about it. Just like, oh, I can't believe we suddenly have to pay rent after living a year without it. First of all, why weren't you saving up your money? I mean, for one thing,
I think actually I have a question. I have a answer for your plot hole. You said, what were they doing with their money? Isn't the one guy like a fucking heroin junkie?
Some of them have drug problems, so there is that. And some of them are basically have to get medical care.
I was gonna say, does this bring a new understanding to the musical number at the beginning of Team America World Police for you?
I've never seen that movie, so I can't really speak to it.
I have, but it's been a while. I don't remember, Johnny. I'm sorry. I ruined your joke.
Nah, it goes, everyone has AIDS.
Oh.
AIDS.
Yeah, that is a subplot. And the guy gets toxoplasmosis from a cat or something.
There's a bunch of characters, more than one character in this movie has AIDS. And if this movie had been about AIDS and drug addiction only, I'd be like, oh, this is a really sad and meaningful story. But so much of it is just about living that sort of hipster bohemian lifestyle and just like rejecting the very notion of contributing anything to society. And I was like, look, I like to have my creative outlet too, and I'm even trying to make it a business. But that's the thing. I'm trying to make it a business. I'm trying to live off of it. And they're like, no, I just want to play my guitar and never ever write a song and just be okay with that. And I cannot.
Leon, you left out the worst part for my money is the part where someone kills a dog and they play it for laughs.
Oh yeah, a dog dies, and and at the end, apparently one of the characters breaks into the ATM, and everyone's like, "Cool," and I'm like, "You're criminals now. This is worse."
Yeah, they're all reprehensible human beings for the most part.
Yeah, it's a shame. All right, guys, we really do have to go because we've gone on quite a bit. Anything you want to say before we take off?
I really hate the way people say the English patient and the running man.
Just those phrases?
No, like the movie titles.
How would you say them?
Well, I mean, because the point is that the patient is English, right? Like he's an Englishman, so it would be like the English patient. But people say the English patient, and I'm like, he's a patient of English,
That's
or
not
like
not the proper
running man,
emphasis.
where it's like, no, the running man. He's a man that's running. He's a patient that's English. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
I just want to say that Captain Falcon from F-Zero in Smash Brothers, his first name is Douglas, if you didn't know. His name is Douglas J. Falcon.
Of course, he's DJ Falcon.
I learned that today, and it just blew my mind. Everyone should know that. I just want to spread that out there. If you haven't watched the latest Super Smash Bros. Trailer, you should, because 2 more Fire Emblem characters are added. It's amazing. The world is a beautiful place.
All right. On that note, we will say goodbye. Stay away from DashCon, and good night, everyone.